Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it is Cypher Sigma here. I think it's episode 11. So yes, 22 weeks into this video series of Back to the Watch List. So yes, this is just an overview of everything and anything that is not movie related, so not been shown at the cinema, that I've watched. So we do the... Oh, I've done that. I've thrown that over there. There we go. Let's make it a bit more viewable, if that's even a word. Yeah, then we've got this, and obviously then I'll throw up some of the digital stuff that I watch. So we always like to go in the order we watch it. And I have a lot of online stuff. So we'll go with the first one. So this is one of 29 titles which I pulled out, which I weren't sure if I wanted to keep in the collection. I know I've seen this on a few other videos that they really like this. I've watched this twice. I come off with the same thing. It was an all right watch. I don't really find it funny. It's not something I would necessarily go back and watch. So this will go in the discarded pile. I know it's rated quite well. I know there's a lot of sequels and stuff to it. I think these type of movies are one that if you grew up with this and you kind of found it funny at the time and you have that nostalgic link to it, then it would definitely be one you'd enjoy in your collection. But I think people who experience this in a lot later life, maybe in a different mindset and, for a different, that younger audience or that aged audience at that time. Yeah, so that will be going. One less I have to worry about. So I've got quite a few series on this. So we'll go into the first one and then we'll go into quite a few. So next up we have is Parasite. So this was on my anime list. So that is one of these scratch cards that you get from Amazon. So this is a great series. Doesn't end necessarily the way you think about it, but essentially these parasites come to Earth and they infect people. They go to infect this young lad, but it gets stuck in his hand, and then it's kind of the realization and the evolution of where these parasites realize that there are benefits to the human race. Some of them do and some of them don't, and they really have some cool designs of where people's faces split off. But really good. Quite a short series, 24 episodes altogether, but I really enjoyed it. And there is a live action I may get, but obviously I can tick that off because that's one. Right, so then we move on to some of the online stuff. So next up we have Bad Batch Series 3. So this is one I got into when I think Disney Plus first came out. I'd never really seen it before. Obviously this revolves around a set of clones that are kind of seen as rejects, but they become like a special battalion, and then they have like a young girl clone that they kind of tag along or save from the Empire, so to speak. And it's kind of their chronicle journeys through kind of life and stuff like this, and redemption and stuff like this. Some dies from that, and I thought actually it's a really solidly good series all the way through. It always is the animation is very nice for Disney. And Lucas Arts, I'm assuming, that produce it. And the stories are well done, and obviously the different clones and stuff, and having all these, how you have like one basic template and how you can manipulate that so many times to have these different characters, I think works really well. So I really enjoyed that. But glad Series 3 is the final one. That's it, job done. I don't think they'd ever release it. I bought all the Clone Wars. I think I kind of keep it in the same realm as Clone Wars. If they did probably release a box set of all three, I probably would enjoy rewatching it again. Next up, so after I'd finished that, we then went to Eyes of Wakanda. So this comes from what feels like the studio that did Killer of Killers and the Battle of Lord of the Rings anime that came out at the end of last year, 2024. And essentially it is, again, it takes on, for me, it felt like they've got this formula because it felt very much similar to the Killer of Killers, where you met different people from Wakanda and how the story kind of all linked up. Some of the designs were really good. I did get that. Stories were all right, but I think there were quite a few similarities from this series to Killer of Killers. And I'm just saying, like, the whole concept and some of the characters and worlds that they have, you could kind of see some, polar opposites or some comparisons. And I think Killer of Killers was really good, that this then kind of coming along that is almost the same sort of creature, so to speak. It was nah, but watched it. It's not one I'm ever really going to pick up, but that is that. So then we go back to the watch pile. So we go to another one that was on my to watch list. So this is Endless Love. This is the guy who plays, was it Dick Grayson? No, it's not Dick Grayson. He's from Magic Mike, because I saw it on the back. So this was actually a really, really good film. Essentially, this is a young lad. He's in school. They are graduating. That is an American. This is a young girl for the 4 years that they've been in school. He's kind of idolised, really want to meet, but they've never ever meet. And then kind of a chance meeting brings the two together. She is from a really rich family. He is from kind of a poor background. And all the way through of their kind of courtship, the dad is very much against it. He has a lot of issues going on. And, you know, the lad is only trying to follow his heart like she is. And there is a lot of turmoil with her family. I think this is a remake of an older film. I want to say that. But it was actually a really nice story, really well done. You know, not necessarily your usual love story on that kind of higher plane, that there are a lot of issues and a lot of stuff that go on, and kind of friends who kind of corrupt stuff along the way. So, or from what I remember, and obviously we don't get, but I really, really enjoyed it. So this will stay in the collection. So really good to have that. Next up was an upgrade that I did, and that is the Steelbook for Suzume. A great anime. Obviously, watching it the third time now, really enjoyed it better than the second time. Really glad I spent the money and got a really good bargain on this, about a young girl trying to kind of discover her future, and a kind of fantasy story kind of around doors and stuff kind of leads it to. I really, I say this kind of it is one of great, and you know, I was big into anime in the 90s, but there was nothing like this, and there was so much stuff come out. I really look forward to the director's next one after Suzume, because he normally releases one every 3 years, and it was meant to be 2025 because this was 2022, but we haven't got one. We've got to wait till 2026. So I look forward, because obviously the director also created Your Name, which is another great one. So then we have this one. So me and my wife spam through this quite quickly, I think in a few weeks. And this is the complete series of Ghosts 1 to 5. Now, funnily enough, of the making of this video, it was recently announced that they will be doing or rumoured that they will be doing a movie. Supposedly, inside sources say the script has been written and greenlit, and all the actors and actresses have said that they would more or less return. So it's really, really good. Essentially, this lady here, her great grandmother passes, or grandmother passes, and basically she gets given this big house. Now, on this house, what we don't know is when ghosts die, if they've got unresolved issues, they hang around. And unfortunately, this guy here, his ability, kind of a bit like Patrick Swayze from Ghost, he can touch people, but it's really hard. He pushes her out of a window, and then after this, to get rid of them, basically. But what happens is, after the incident, she can then see dead people and sees all of these ghosts, and then it's basically leads to trying to do up the house and trying to make a living and trying to, you know, do well. But then obviously she has to deal with all these different ghosts talking to her and occupying her time and everything, and an interaction. And it actually is really good. It takes a few episodes to warm up to, but by the end of it was really, really good. All the characters and learning their backstories and stuff like this. It did feel by the end of season 5 that it was ended too early, but I look forward to where the movie will take us in regards to that. So yeah, great BBC series. Obviously, I don't have a TV license, so it's the only way I could get this. So it's a tenner for all 5 series, so it was a bargain. So next up we have Aliens versus Predator. So yeah, so on my kind of Aliens rewatch, this was one I picked up. I actually really, really enjoyed this movie. There were a few bits that I remembered from my initial watching, like the Aztec temple. This one very much feels like a big scope one because of the aliens, and then you obviously have like the Weyland-Yutani guy coming in, and then fighting each other. They did use some CG and I think some practical effects. I think this worked. I really think the Predator Alien, sorry, works really well with practical effects over CG. Some of the CG in the earlier iterations aren't great, but I really enjoyed this. It did really well, and obviously spanned the sequel, and obviously I had that to watch at some point. But I really did thoroughly enjoy that. So next up to online stuff. So as we're going for like Star Wars stuff, we have the Acolyte series. So the series that I think was regionally panned to death at the end of last year. And I really, really like this. Essentially, the story was of two young girls. They are twins. One kind of becomes evil, one kind of becomes good. You have this kind of new Dark Lord. You have the Jedi. You have the main guy is from obviously Squid Games, which has surprised me. I mean, I kept away from everything of this. I really like the designs. I really like the look of most of the characters. The overall story was good, predictable in a lot of ways. Of like, there was two girls because you don't get to know that at the beginning. So sorry, spoiler alert on that one. But it's very obvious, and there's a few twists and turns that you kind of see coming anyway. But I really like the characters. I think the only thing in the overall story of just what Star Wars seem to do, they're like, well, we'll have this pocket universe, like kind of Rogue One, apart from the did Andor, bring all these characters into it. It goes, but we've got to kill them all off because then that way we don't have to use them ever again, and you don't have contract. And there were some really good characters. The girl who plays X-23 from the X-Men, she was a really good Jedi. She was really cool. As I say, the guy who was the Dark Lord, Sith Lord, I thought he was really cool and how he split his lightsaber and then used his helmet. I thought there was stuff like that, and some of the fights and stuff were really, really done well. It just, I think overall the story needed tweaking. But sorry, just noise in the background is my dog trying to redo his bed. Um, then the next one up is also a movie. This was on Amazon Prime. So The Bad Batch, Eyes of Wakanda, and The Acolyte are all from Disney Plus. This one was on Amazon. It was released. It is The Map That Leads to You. This is based on a book. It stars the main lady who was Danica in I Know What You Did Last Summer. If you've watched that movie, I watched that movie. Didn't really like her character, but I think the actress did well to portray a character that you don't essentially like for who she's playing. This is a little role. Essentially, this girl, she goes backpacking. She meets this lad. They fall in love. Then he kind of leaves her rather than going home after these 2 weeks together. She finds out that basically he obviously has had cancer. It's come back, and that's why he distances himself. When she finds out that their friends get married, she then goes to kind of see him, and they kind of have a happy moment, and that she's going to kind of stick around. Supposedly, I think they say it's from a book. It does end, I think, about the same. I don't think they elaborate too much from what I read online. To me, it felt like it needed more with the health and everything. There were a lot of stuff that you just saw coming, unless you've not seen it. But I think the story, more along, I really enjoyed it. My wife didn't so much. She thought it was rubbish. I quite enjoyed it. I thought what they did, all the actors and actresses did really well. It's like a few twists and turns. It wasn't your typical, but it is kind of like 2 weeks they fall in love, and then like their friends get married and stuff. And it was all, a lot happens in a small span of time, and you're not kind of seeing a more foregone conclusion to it. To me, was like, this is kind of like half of the film, and where's the other half? To me, I say I enjoyed it. I just think there's more we needed for it. So there's that. So I'll leave the last two. So we'll go back to the collection. So there were a few I picked up. So Madam Web, what was condoned as one of the worst Marvel movies ever. What did I think on my revisit? Now, my revisit was very much, if everybody's seen this, was kind of a bit of a 50-50 one. A few bits that where it ends like a TV series with the costumes and that. I liked it when I saw it in the cinema, and the second time around I thought, oh my god, the costume and stuff looked god awful on them. Like, it's still, there are a lot of stuff that was missing. Like Dakota Johnson, sorry, I've watched her in quite a few stuff. She seems to have to play the same sort of character, has the same sort of temperament and stuff like this. Like, don't get me wrong, like, the film is based around her. I like the kind of Web and her time kind of thing, and I understand how it was triggered. But for me, I felt like the story needed to be different. you needed to take the kids out. The story needed to be solely focused around her, and there needed to be. I think it would have been better rather than she had the life death experience and it trigger her. I reckon she should just have had small triggers throughout her life, and this meant she had a little bit of a troubled child upbringing, or can be a little bit of a zany character, because people think she's a bit spacey, or like because she's like, oh, haven't we had this conversation before, stuff like this. And then I think it should have left up to them killing like her boss, like it did. But then I think it should be on this journey of her finding her abilities, um, and obviously them having this like evil guy. I would have, like, in the comics there is like this group that kind of try and kill the totems, and I honestly think the guy should have just been after her for her kind of powers. He shouldn't have already had kind of her powers and I reckon he should have tried to get it off her mum. He kills her mum. The spider dies or something, whatever. She gets taken away by the people, and the kid gets, brought alive, so to speak, as the mum dies, and then given to someone, and she goes off, and then she goes on this journey trying to rediscover herself when this incident happens of that her boss is killed in front of her. She takes a leave of absence. You don't necessarily need to. I like the Ben character as well, even though it's obviously trying to cross into Spider-Man. But I think it should have just been her, and then she finds out, there is this kind of guy out there. He, did work with his mum, and realizes he comes out of the woodwork because he then starts to realize she has powers because she's trying to save people. And then we kind of go down that route. And I think that would have been far better that at the very end, she, yes, does become kind of a Madam Web. And then you could kind of have just flashes of characters that could come up in the future. I think that far would have worked better. But yeah, I was like, it's still not the greatest movie. I'm glad to have it in the collection because it completes part of that line. I found the kids kind of more annoying. They did, as I say, there was too much stuff going on, and a Madam Web film needed to be about Madam Web to set it up. But it is what it is. Next up was the small upgrade that I got. So doing the Good Dinosaur. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. The fact that DreamWorks, Pixar do a lot of films. So this is Spot and this is Arlo. These two work really, really well. The fact, the dynamic of them and what they deal with, and he talks and he doesn't, and just how they get through a lot of stuff of body language, and like he's kind of the human and this is the dog, the pet, the animal, rather than what would have been the other way around, actually works so well in this dynamic. It's sad, obviously, the dad dying and everything else, and trying to prove it. But I think the little characters and stuff they let through are really good, and I think they should do more of stuff like this. Just a heartfelt story, good writing, and good character development works really, really well. Or I think so. Great to have the upgrade of that. So we'll have three. So we'll go into it. So next up is what was my most anticipated Marvel movie of the year, Thunderbolts. So as you've seen and stuff, what I like to do is I will go and watch it at the cinema once. I very rarely go to watch a film twice. Sometimes I've done. And then what I would do is I will wait at least 6 months to a year, normally to rewatch it. Now, I'd really anticipated this and I was really let down for some stuff. I'm not saying the film's rubbish. I just kind of viewed it as A, one as a story, and B, I'm a massive Thunderbolts fan, so I don't know if it even shows it on here. So it doesn't show it, but if you a Thunderbolts fan is actually a lightning bolt, even if I get it right, and that's the symbol from the comic book. So it's been over 20 years. I'm a massive fan. Now, when you watch some of the bonus stuff and you see that, and I was like Taskmaster, the initial concept for this film, I think, would have worked far better. Probably would have got more money in. But it seems to be there is this kind of inherent kind of symmetry that Marvel are using, that essentially it's like, right, well, we'll bring people in and they have this idea, and then the studio twists it essentially, right, they get a movie and then we're just going to bring them into Doomsday, and then, we kind of sideline them. And that seems to be what they did with them. And I didn't like it. There were a few bits, and I noticed this on AJ had mentioned this after I'd seen it. And yes, it is great. On a second watch, you notice more nods to what is going to happen for them to be the Avengers. That is very much added in small. But I think the conclusion but I think it's one of those ones of you take these random characters, you put them together, and you try to do the best story. Now they must have had a really good story, or a different story to what they had, and they've changed it. But what they did is essentially they then left you a team that are almost essentially the same skill set, except for Bob and somebody you can turn invisible. Everyone else is kind of super serum and punchy kicky. Um, they all kind of follow the whole sort of same kind of, yeah, as I say, skill. They all had the same sort of skill set, except for Bob. And I'm thinking, him being a bad guy, it shouldn't have been. They should have kind of tailored the film to setting up them saving, them being set up by Fontaine, then basically breaking out and getting away, and then kind of being hunted by someone, and then all these kind of outcasts coming together to stop this person, and then going after Fontaine. Um, and during the process of them doing this, them saving people along the way, kind of building up a credible public relations side of things. And then you could have been, we are the Thunderbolts, and she was like, they're the Avengers, and like, no, not the Avengers, we're the Thunderbolts, because they could have easily done that. And then you could have just thrown that Zemo was maybe having a little bit of a hand in behind the background. That's what essentially was kind of going to happen, and I think that would have worked far better. Whereas this is, yeah, a lot of people love it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's only because it's my favourite comic that why I have the steelbook. But essentially, I can almost guarantee you the next time we see these characters, they are literally going to be on the sideline. And if you don't kill more of them off or just push them to one side, that's what will, and this will just all be forgotten. And I kind of feel that's a waste of property. But it's my personal opinion. I may be wrong. Who cares? So next up, we go to more movies. So I already had this one in the collection, but it was again just accessibility. Really bad rainy day. Me and my wife wanted to watch something, so I put on Anger Management. This is the movie, not the TV series. I really enjoyed this one. The whole singing on the bridge, who's the pretty man in the mirror there. Really enjoyed this movie. Really kind of a little zany one for Adam Sandler, and the fact that it's all kind of reminds me a little bit of The Game. If you've ever seen that with Michael Douglas, there is this set of events happen that lead him down his path, but it's actually kind of all orchestrated behind the scenes. I think it's very clever, and I really enjoyed it. And it's it's one of those probably underrated Adam Sandler movies that isn't rewatched a lot, and I think I would probably watch it a lot more, or I put it a little bit higher up. Yeah, really good. And then the last one I watched was called Spectral. So I thought I hadn't seen this, and it seems I have. This was, Anger Management and Spectral were both on Netflix. Just so I show you where I go. I pay for all these services. This is where I watch them. And just if you wanted to watch them, that's where you can go. So Spectral, it is the guy who played Chase from the early series of 24. Essentially, he's a scientist. He creates this technology for for the army, and essentially come across these kind of ghosts. He's then sent out there and realizing that he's gross at killing people. He helps with his team to kind of figure out what's going on. And actually, it is a really good story, and visual wise and army wise, and all the designs are really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. So by the end of it, I thought I kind of have watched this before, but I couldn't remember all of it. But I thought it was really good. There are some sad and tense moments, but how it was shot and, and the CG and everything involved and the practical effects are really good. I cannot highly recommend it. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to give it away, but as a war zone movie, it is definitely great. So then we get the final two. So yeah, I'll do it in the order. So we'll do this one. So the first up is The Beast. So this is, sorry, I tried to get the label off and it ripped stuff. So this is the final film, the final series that Patrick Swayze did before he died. He shot the pilot for this one, and then he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And then unfortunately, 3 months after filming the final 13th episode of it being cancelled, he passed away. Very sad. Now, when you watch this, essentially it's definitely a vehicle of its time, early 2000s, 2009, even to 2000-ish. He is a kind of professional undercover agent. This guy comes along and he basically helps him out. He's his new assistant. On the first episode, you find out that there is a team that are basically looking into him. They believe that he has been kind of a rogue agent. He's doing naughty stuff, and and then basically he's tasked to try and help him, or coerced into him as the series goes on. He has a kind of handle that he's in, which is really weird because in the first episode you meet this team, and then all the rest of them you only meet one member of that team. I'm not going to say if he is or isn't. It does kind of wrap it up. It wraps it up that there is more that could have come. A lot of loose ends are tied up, not completely. I think it struggled to find its footing a little bit. I don't know. It seemed that with these sort of series and where you have these characters, you need a bigger team around them. And I think it struggled because it was more situated in Lempton. It's like, what undercover are they doing this week? And I'm like, how many different personalities can you have and take on and stuff like this? And it seemed a little absurd. He seemed to kind of be a bit outrageous, using RPG in the first episode. But there were just like how it was a little bit shot and how it is a little bit directed. I think it could have used a bit more work. And as I say, I think a better cast, so the story would have worked. I think you just had probably more members with him, and then maybe you still had the team that were trying to look into him. I think it would have worked a bit better because there are more characters. There are, like, he has a love interest at the beginning and she disappears for like 5 episodes and then comes back in for the last few. But it was all right. It was good to see Patrick Swayze and stuff, and I'm glad that obviously there's something I can watch, I can enjoy. It ends, and I'm not really like left wanting more. As I say, it's kind of one of those things that if it had done really, really well and you'd wanted more, it would have been even more sadder that his passing. Obviously, there isn't too much publicly known if he knew that it wasn't working, because he was giving updates and saying he was actually getting better. After dinner, but glad to have it in the collection. Obviously, I think it only cost me £2. Yeah, gutted about that, but it is what it is. And then the final thing we have for this week's video is this box set of The Chronicle of Riddick, which is essentially Pitch Black, Dark Fury, and then The Chronicles of Riddick. Really actually enjoyed watching this. When you see the next video, I've actually watched Riddick as well, so I've watched it all. I really enjoyed this. The first movie, Pitch Black, great movie, great setting. The CG is done quite well for what it is, even though it's kind of halfway between a blockbuster sci-fi movie and a poor CG movie with the creatures. I like the fact they come up with these designs. Obviously, they kind of use these designs throughout the whole, I would say, trilogy, even though there's 4 films technically if you count the anime. Obviously, once you know the 2 twists of the first movie, it isn't as powerful, but I still enjoy it, and it still makes me want to see more of Riddick, which you do. Dark Fury is a 30-minute animation which kind of details the story after they leave the planet and the 3 people. I'm not going to say who those 3 people are. Obviously, Riddick's one of them. It was quite good. It's very much done in the style of Aeon Flux from MTV Studios. It's that style. It's all right. It's obviously Vin Diesel's voicing it, which is a good thing. I think they kept him in and stuff, because obviously he's a great time. There are some of the fight scenes that work really good, but I think overall it was quite short, and there was a few bits that felt lacking on the animated side. It was kind of like, it felt like it should have been the start, and it may have been the start of a series that was cancelled. But it was all right in that continuum, just to kind of fill a little bit that void. Then we had the Chronicles of Riddick, which I think is several years afterwards, which I did enjoy. Obviously, this is all about a prison and then kind of running over the planet. They did swap out one of the characters, so one of the characters who survives in 1, they are recast as someone else in 2. There was obviously reasons for that. I can't find really much anything online that says the exact reason for why they were recast. But it is what it is. You can't go back and change these things. But I really enjoyed it. I think the whole series does very well of hiring kind of medium actors who do mercenaries really, really well. And I think throughout all of it, the bloke who's kind of chasing, who he then kind of has his comeuppance in his team, did do like really, really well. And there were some funny moments there where he sits on his chest, and then you could see some kind of foresight of what has happened. But I think the character of Riddick and put in that kind of kind of prison setting, and then you have Carl Urban's character, and you have kind of the army race that he's then kind of fighting. That was really good. It was definitely up this ante a little bit more, and you have this armada that he's with, and it was all clever of how it is all done. And I think it was a very much a film with two halves. You kind of have this prison and stuff, and then you kind of have this ascension, so to speak. Um, Obviously then that begs, obviously they had to kind of change that between 3 and 4, or essentially the Chronicles of Riddick and Riddick. But as I say, I really enjoyed the world. I really look forward to more. I say I enjoyed Riddick. I'm looking forward there. But yeah, definitely a nice upgrade. Obviously saves on space, and I really enjoy these movies. You can get figures of him, so I may look into that. But that has been everything that I've been watching over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, a very eclectic range. Anything you've seen here that you like, that you don't like, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Always feel free, if there's something obscure that you think I may like, always throw it in the comments. I will happily add it to a list that I have, a rolling list. And if I see it out when I'm on my CEX hunts or that, or out with the guys, I will try and pick it up if it's a decent price. Anyway, if you've been sitting here listening to 30 minutes odd of my voice and it's all right, you've enjoyed what I talk about, you feel like you may want more, then please click that subscribe button. It does do a lot for me. You know, every person that joins the channel, it just builds the following that I have. And by following, say, when you come across, even I am a little bit negative, but I try and be positive. You know, I'm trying to encourage people to get more into movies, get more into cinema, to expand. You know, there is so much negativity in this world. It is sometimes nice to have an escapism, or what, you know, like some therapists call a glimmer. It's nice for people sometimes to just, what, you're having a bad day, just go back, go to the cinema, you know, or just put on a film, block out the world, and just enjoy a story. Regardless of how good or bad people rate it, you know, as long as you enjoy the experience and you can kind of step away. I think there is too much negativity in this world, and I'm trying to spread a little bit of positivity. But anyway, as I diverge on that, I've been starting with Screen Time, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.